Our dear viewers, before we unravel the threads of tonight's tale, make sure to click that subscribe button and ring the bell, lest you get lost in the shadows of forgotten stories. You're about to witness whispers in the abandoned factory, where the echoes of the past weave a fabric so chilling it could only be spun in the loom of our nightmares. Under the waning light of a gibbous moon, the small, seemingly forgotten town of Derry, Maine, held its breath as the old Crawford Textiles factory loomed ominously at its edge. It was here, amidst whispers of the past and shadows of forgotten machinery, that Jack Donovan and his team, known collectively as the Seekers, planned to unearth the truth buried within the factory's decaying walls. Jack, a man whose rugged features were etched with lines of determination and loss, had once been a shining star in the world of investigative journalism. However, his career had taken a nosedive into the obscure and unexplained, much to the skepticism of his peers. Crawford Textiles was his chance at redemption, a story so compelling that it could not be ignored. Beside him stood Sarah Nguyen, her stance defiant against the encroaching darkness. As the team's technical expert, she harbored a deep-seated skepticism towards the paranormal, a skepticism born from a childhood filled with myths and legends used to explain away the tragedies of life. Yet her loyalty to Jack, forged through years of friendship and shared dreams, had brought her to this forsaken place. Completing their trio was Alex Rivera, whose fascination with history and the macabre had led him to many dark and forgotten corners of the world. His gentle demeanor belied a fierce intellect and a heart captivated by the stories of those long gone. The factory, with its tales of tragedy and spectral sightings, was a siren call he could not resist. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the broken windows and rusted gates of the factory, the team began their preparations. The air was thick with anticipation and the faint, metallic taste of fear. "Look at this place," Jack whispered, his voice a mix of awe and apprehension. "It's perfect." Sarah, adjusting the straps of her heavy equipment bag, couldn't help but roll her eyes. "Or a perfect waste of time," she retorted, though her gaze lingered on the darkened windows as if expecting something to peer back. Alex, ever the peacemaker, smiled softly. "Every place has its stories, Sarah. Perhaps tonight we'll uncover this one's." Their base of operations was set up in the heart of the factory, where the shadows seemed deepest, and the air held a chill that spoke of more than just the night's cool embrace. Around them, the remnants of the factory's once thriving industry stood like silent witnesses to their intrusion. As Jack initiated the first call into the darkness, inviting any spirits present to communicate, a palpable shift in the atmosphere enveloped them. The factory, with its tragic past and whispered hauntings, seemed to lean in, listening. A sudden chill swept through the vast empty space, and a soft, almost imperceptible whisper floated through the air. Sarah's equipment flickered to life, screens blinking with erratic patterns, and Alex's breath caught as a page from his journal fluttered as though brushed by an unseen hand. "This is it," Jack said, his voice barely above a whisper, yet clear in the oppressive silence. "We're not alone." The team stood on the precipice of the unknown, their hearts racing with a mix of fear and excitement. The Crawford Textiles factory, with its looming shadows and whispered secrets, had begun to reveal its story, and the Seekers were there to listen. As the cloak of night wrapped tighter around the decaying heart of Crawford Textiles, the Seekers found themselves ensnared in a web of supernatural phenomena that defied logic and reason. The factory, long silent and still, began to echo with the remnants of its past, a past marred by tragedy and sorrow. Jack, Sarah and Alex had decided to divide their efforts, each exploring different sectors of the sprawling complex, their paths illuminated only by the faint beams of their flashlights and the occasional flicker of Sarah's sophisticated yet increasingly erratic equipment. Jack ventured into what remained of the foreman's office, a room that seemed frozen in time. Dust-laden furniture and faded photographs adorned the space, but it was an old leather-bound journal that caught his eye. The journal, belonging to Thomas Wicker, the factory's enigmatic founder, contained ramblings that bordered on madness. Wicker spoke of the factory not just as a place of industry, but as a conduit to the beyond, a means to breach the veil between life and death. His obsession with the occult was clear, and it was this obsession that had perhaps invited the darkness that now permeated every corner of the building. Meanwhile, Alex found himself drawn to a hidden chamber, its entrance obscured by years of neglect. Inside, personal effects of the workers, worn-out tools, faded photographs, and small handmade trinkets lay scattered as if left in haste. The air in the room was thick with emotion, and Alex could almost hear the echoes of laughter, arguments, and tears that once filled the space. It was a tangible reminder of the lives intertwined with the factory's machinery, lives cut short by tragedy. This room, a microcosm of the factory's soul, seemed to pulsate with a sorrow that was both ancient and raw. Sarah, skeptical and pragmatic, found her beliefs challenged by an encounter that shook the very foundations of her understanding. In the dimly lit corridors of the factory's east wing, she saw her. A spectral figure of a young girl, no older than 10, her face etched with the hardships of factory life. The ghostly apparition, radiating a melancholy light, whispered of the cursed machine that had claimed her life and the lives of many others. She implored Sarah to find it, to put an end to its malevolence. Despite her skepticism, Sarah felt a pull, a need to help this lost soul find peace. As the team regrouped, the weight of their discoveries hung heavily between them. The factory was more than a setting for their documentary. It was a nexus of pain and unresolved spirits, all anchored by a cursed machine that seemed to be the heart of the haunting. "We need to find this machine," Jack declared, his voice a mix of determination and dread. "It's not just about the documentary anymore. We have a chance to make things right." Their resolve solidified by the haunting plea of the ghostly girl and the madness documented in Wicker's journal. The seekers ventured deeper into the factory. The shadows seemed to press in around them, a palpable force that sought to drive them back, to keep the secrets of the factory and its cursed machine hidden. But the team pressed on, driven by a mix of professional curiosity and a burgeoning sense of duty to the spirits that lingered within the factory's walls. Each step took them closer to the heart of the haunting, to a confrontation with an ancient evil that had waited decades for its chance to break free. The heart of Crawford Textiles throbbed with an ancient, malevolent pulse as the seekers delved deeper into its labyrinthine bowels. The factory, once a monument to human industry, now served as a crypt for lost souls and broken dreams. It was in this oppressive atmosphere that Jack, Sarah, and Alex sought the source of the haunting, a cursed machine that had woven tragedy into the very fabric of the factory's history. As they navigated the decaying corridors, the air grew colder, the oppressive silence punctuated only by their footsteps and the distant, mournful groans of the factory settling into its foundations. The weight of the unseen watched them, a palpable presence that seemed to feed on their fear. Jack, with a lantern held high, led the way, his face set in a mask of determination. The journal of Thomas Wicker, now safely tucked in his backpack, had become their guide, its cryptic entries hinting at the location of the cursed machine. Wicker's obsession with the occult had led him to believe that the machinery could serve as a bridge between worlds. a belief that had evidently invited a darkness into the factory that lingered long after its closure. Sarah, her skepticism eroded by the undeniable evidence of the supernatural, followed closely behind. Her mind, always analytical, struggled to reconcile the experiences of the night with her understanding of reality. The apparition of the young girl haunted her, a poignant reminder of the human cost of the factory's legacy. Alex, his historian's heart heavy with the stories of those who had suffered within the factory's walls, moved with a quiet reverence. The hidden chamber of workers' belongings had left a deep impression on him, a tangible connection to the past that spurred him on. Finally, they found it. An imposing loom, its gears and spindles an intricate maze of iron and shadow, positioned as though it were the factory's dark heart. The machine stood silent, yet it exuded an aura of palpable malevolence, as if it were alive and aware of their presence. As they approached, the temperature dropped sharply, their breaths visible in the air as frost began to form on the cold metal surfaces around them. The loom, shrouded in darkness, seemed to pulsate with a spectral energy, its presence a blight on the fabric of reality. "It's here," Jack whispered, the light from his lantern dancing across the cursed machine, revealing dried blood and arcane symbols etched into its metal frame. Sarah set up her equipment, her hands trembling not from the cold, but from the realization of what they were about to confront. This is wrong," she murmured, her voice barely audible over the sudden, eerie whir of machinery coming to life around them. Alex, clutching the leather-bound journal, recited passages that hinted at how the machine could be stopped. "Wicker believed this machine was the key to immortality," he said, a note of disgust in his voice. "But all it brought was death." Suddenly, the factory itself seemed to react, the walls groaning in protest as shadows coalesced into a dark entity near the machine. It was a manifestation of the factory's pain and rage, a guardian of the cursed loom, formed from the souls of those who had perished. The entity screamed in a chorus of voices, each one a lamentation of a life stolen by the factory's greed. It moved with a terrifying speed, its form shifting and twisting in the dim light, a nightmare brought to life. In the chaos, Sarah was pulled into the shadows by unseen forces, her screams cutting through the din of the awakening factory. Jack and Alex, though terrified, knew retreat was not an option. They had to save Sarah and stop the entity to prevent it from claiming more lives. But as they prepared to face the malevolent force, they realized the battle was not just against the darkness in front of them, but against the very essence of the factory itself. The cursed machine, the heart of the haunting, pulsed with a life of its own, a beacon for the entity that sought to protect it at all costs. Their resolve tested, Jack and Alex rallied, driven by the need to save their friend and end the factory's legacy of suffering. The confrontation that followed would test the limits of their courage and force them to confront the darkness not just within the factory, but within themselves. The pre-dawn hours at Crawford Textiles were a crucible, testing the very limits of courage and desperation. Jack and Alex, driven by a blend of fear, guilt, and resolve, prepared for what would be their final stand against the darkness that had claimed the factory, and now Sarah. The air was thick with anticipation, a silent witness to the impending confrontation. The factory, with its labyrinth of machinery and shadows, seemed to hold its breath, aware of the decisive moment that approached. Armed with knowledge gleaned from Thomas Wicker's journal and a desperate plan, Jack and Alex set about creating a makeshift trap. They combined the old with the new, ancient rites described in the journal with the modern technology Sarah had brought. It was a gambit, a hope that the blending of worlds would be enough to save their friend and end the curse. "Remember, it's bound to the machine," Jack reminded Alex, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of fear in his gut. "We disrupt the machine. We disrupt it." Alex nodded, clutching the journal like a talisman. "As above, so below," he whispered, repeating the phrase that had become their mantra. "Let the imprisoned be freed, and the tormentor be bound." Their trap set. They lured the entity towards the heart of the factory, towards the cursed machine. The entity, sensing the challenge to its domain, attacked with ferocious intensity. Its form, a melic vortex of shadow and despair, seemed unstoppable, but as it neared the machine, Jack activated the electromagnetic pulse device, a piece of Sarah's equipment adapted for this very purpose. The air crackled with energy, the pulse disrupting the spectral energy that gave the entity form. With a sound that was both a scream and a roar, the entity recoiled, its form wavering as the machinery around them ground to a halt. The darkness that had seemed so absolute began to dissipate, the oppressive atmosphere lifting as if a weight had been removed from the very soul of the factory. In the aftermath, they found Sarah. She was unconscious, her body slumped near the remnants of the machine, but alive. Relief washed over Jack and Alex in waves, their joy tempered by the knowledge of how close they had come to losing everything. As they carried Sarah from the factory, the first rays of dawn painted the sky in hues of gold and pink. The factory, its dark legacy broken, stood silent against the morning light, a monument to both human folly and resilience. The Seekers left Crawford Textiles behind, their footage a testament to the truths they had uncovered. Their documentary would tell a story of darkness, of the unseen worlds that linger just beyond the veil of reality. But more than that, it would be a cautionary tale of the cost of curiosity and the strength found in friendship and belief. As they drove away, the factory receded into the distance, its secrets laid bare, but its shadows forever imprinted on their hearts. They had faced the unknown, had stared into the abyss, and though they emerged victorious, the experience would haunt them for the rest of their days. The dawn's light marked not just the end of their ordeal, but the beginning of a new understanding, a respect for the thin veil that separates our world from the darkness that lies beyond. As dawn breaks, our seekers emerge, not just with tales that chill to the bone, but with souls forever entwined in the weft of the supernatural. If this story has unraveled any threads of thought, or left you stitched with fear, leave us a comment below. And in the tapestry of the unknown, every thread counts, and tonight's tale, Whispers in the Abandoned Factory, has woven a story you won't soon forget. Fright fans, click next for more chills and hit subscribe to join our ghastly gang. You see, who dares to miss out, so watch our next video.